Rome didn't fall to barbarians. It didn't collapse in a single invasion. It didn't die screaming. It died slowly, surrounded by lawyers, politicians, and men insisting they were saving it. Welcome to the Footnote Files. I'm Sarah A. Morris. Today we look at a story often told as a triumph, but which was actually a funeral. You were taught Rome transitioned into an empire to bring stability. That Augustus ended the chaos. That version is far too clean. Today, we're exploring the specific footnotes of that transition. How the laws stayed the same, while the spirit of the state was hollowed out. By the 1st century BCE, Rome was technically at its peak. It had its elections, its courts, and its ancient senate. But underneath the facade, an elite class had successfully captured almost all levels of power and wealth. Concentration was absolute. Small farmers, the backbone of the Republic's early legions, were systematically pushed off their land to make way for massive estates. These former citizens flooded into the city. They became tenants in their own capital, their social contract slowly dissolving into dependency. Rome was winning its wars abroad, conquering the Mediterranean, while losing its soul at home. The distance between the rulers and the ruled grew too wide to bridge. Political disagreements stopped being settled with speeches. They were settled with muscle. Gangs aligned themselves with specific politicians. Armed supporters attacked rivals in broad daylight. Assassination, once a horrific anomaly, became a standard political inconvenience. This wasn't just a breakdown in law and order. It was a new operating system. Violence was now the primary currency of Roman politics. When words lose their meaning, people reach for weapons. The Senate House, once a place of debate, became a fortress for the few against the many. Then came the weaponization of the law itself. Prosecutions were no longer about justice. They were about political removal. If you couldn't beat a rival in an election, you indicted them. You dragged them through the courts to bankrupt their reputation and their purse. Trials became theater. Verdicts were decided by strategy and bribery, not evidence. The law existed, but it no longer meant what it said. By weaponizing the courts, the Roman elite ensured that no outsider could ever truly challenge their status. The law became a shield for them and a sword against everyone else. Eventually, power consolidated around a few strongmen. Generals with private armies and politicians with loyal, paid mobs. Julius Caesar didn't invent this broken system. He was simply its most talented student. He mastered the art of the necessary exception. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon, it wasn't a sudden, shocking betrayal. It was the logical conclusion of decades of institutional erosion. Rome began to normalize temporary, emergency powers. Dictators were appointed for crises that, conveniently, never seemed to end. The emergency became the routine. Once you concede that the rules can be broken, just this once, for safety, you've already lost the Republic. It's just a matter of timing. Every abuse of power came wrapped in a justification: security, stability, the restoration of public order, always for the people's own good. Each exception created a new precedent, and each precedent made the next abuse easier to accept. The citizens were being trained to expect the exception. By the time Augustus took absolute power, most Romans weren't angry. They were relieved. They didn't love monarchy. They were just exhausted by the chaos. Stability is a powerful drug. If the price of peace is your voice in government, many will pay it without a second thought. That is how a republic truly ends, not with a bang, but a sigh of relief. Rome didn't lose its freedom in a single climactic moment. It traded it away, bit by bit, for the promise that someone else would handle the mess. The republic didn't collapse under the weight of an enemy. It was hollowed out from within until only the shell remained. Rome is often used as a warning about external threats. But that's missing the point. Empires don't kill republics. Republics dismantle themselves. They die because they stop believing in the rules that made them. History doesn't repeat itself, but the footnotes always fill in the gaps. Next time on the Footnote Files, you were taught street gangs created the crack epidemic of the 80s, that it was a failure of culture. But the archives tell a different story. Investigations tying traffickers to CIA-backed operations funding foreign wars. Secrecy over accountability. A story about selective law enforcement and a legacy of mass incarceration. We'll see you then.